remember the last time we met, we talked about the issues you were having with Johnny in the classroom, not being able to stay in his seat, constantly getting up. We really wanted to target this behavior and, see what was going on with him, why he was doing it. So I came into the classroom and I observed him the 3 times. I was also able to conduct the interview with him. I got a lot of great information that I want to share with you before we go on. I noticed while he was in the classroom, and please feel free to add anything else in that you've noticed, but I noticed that a lot of the time when he was getting out of his seat, he was getting attention from the kids that were around him. He was going into a certain part of the classroom, the little blonde girl and the dark-headed kid on the other side, and he was going over there. They were laughing at him. They thought it was funny. He was getting a lot of attention from that. Is that usually something that you notice in the classroom?
Usually. He'll be pacified if he gets a certain amount, and if he's not getting what he desires, I think he does it a little more, acts out a little bit more than normal.
And he seemed to be doing that a lot when I was watching him in the classroom. If those students were out of the classroom, or if they were engaged in something else, he wasn't doing it as frequently. He was mostly doing it when other students were giving him that positive feedback. When I met with him, we discussed, I told him why I was meeting with him, that he had been having some problems in the classroom, and I asked him about how he felt about being in the classroom, how he felt about school, and what his attitudes were. And he really just seemed to have, he wants to do well. It wasn't that he didn't like you, and it wasn't that he didn't enjoy the work, or that he felt it was too difficult. He really communicated that he just really enjoyed his friends. He really enjoyed being around the other kids. That seemed to be his favorite part, and it seemed very clear that he was interested in seeking the attention of the other students in the classroom, and cutting up. But mostly is the problem that you presented is him getting out of his class, or getting out of his seat. And I guess along with that, I noticed that he wasn't actually doing a lot of good activities either. He wasn't doing a lot of doing his work, or interacting with you, or interacting positively with other students.
Yeah, it's usually whenever other kids are getting recognized, or if they're sharing something, that he starts to act that way.
Okay. So
wanting the spotlight, maybe.
So it seems like he's really, based on just observing and on, the interview with him and your observations, that he's really doing it out of seeking attention. Maybe he's not getting that attention that he needs, or he's not having that need met, or maybe he's just seeking it in a wrong way. He hasn't learned good ways to do that. So what kind of goals can we look at here? What would we like our goal to be? We need to make a goal that's specific, something to target that behavior of getting out of his seat.
I would at least, within the first month, have him at 50%.
Okay, that's great.
At least half the time getting out of the seat.
Okay. That's great.
So
we'll put down within the first month, which that's great. We'll be able to observe him, how frequently he's doing this within the first month, and see if it is cut down by 50%. That will be our target on what we're going to shoot for. Is there something we can look at maybe a little bit further, not just into the first month, but into the second month?
We could maybe go another 25%, because I know usually the first month you'll see the most changes anyway. So.
Great. So we'll look at seeing a 75% improvement by the second month. So in the first month, see a 50% improvement. If he's been getting out of his seat 10 times, we'll hope that he was getting out 5 times during the first month, and by the end of the first month, and by the end of the second month, less. Right. Okay. Are there any what other things would we like him to do? I noticed that we discussed that he'd not just been getting out of his seat, but was also not exhibiting good classroom behaviors and good socially acceptable behaviors. Could we maybe throw that in as a secondary goal?
Yeah, at least, anything there would honestly be an improvement. So maybe 25% increase in his acceptable classroom behavior.
Okay, and that's a lot, and that's by decreasing, his unacceptable behavior, then maybe we could stretch that out a little bit further and say over a 3-month period to see, a 25% improvement of more socially acceptable behaviors, raising his hand before he gets out of his seat, and talking to other kids at appropriate times. Okay, I think those are great goals. Now, looking at them, do these seem like goals that are doable? I mean, we have to consider, are these goals that we can actually accomplish?
I think they could be accomplished as long as we set the right game plan.
Okay, and this, of course, this is going to require extra effort and maybe some modifications in your classroom on your part. Are those things that, at this point with the classroom that you have, you shared about some of your other students, are these some things that are doable now, maybe making some changes in the classroom?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. Great. Well, then let's talk about some possible interventions. Maybe, what we could do is just kind of brainstorm, and we'll just throw out any and every idea that you can think of. Good ideas, bad ideas. We don't have to be limited to just ideas that we know. No idea is bad at this point. We can just throw them all out there, and then afterwards we'll kind of weed through and see what is the best case for you and for Johnny. So I'll start and say one thing we could do would be, maybe offering rewards. Maybe that's a good thing to do. We can start with rewards.
So maybe possibly changing his seating arrangement.
Okay.
Around other students, he's more
seat?
inclined to act certain ways around certain kids.
Okay. So changing his seat, putting him around other students. Okay. What are some other things that you've noticed? What about meeting with him? Does it ever help to meet with him face to face? And
times in the past, if I pull him aside and talk to him directly, it'll change his behavior short term.
Okay.
For the next couple of days, maybe.
Okay, so
maybe
maybe
by the end of the week, it's probably back at it again.
Okay, so we'll put that down though. Face to face meeting with just him. Okay. What about, do you ever have like any peer mentors in the classroom, or have students work together? Maybe we could look at that. Well, and you said maybe doing the face-to-face. Have you done any contracts with any students, like behavior contracts, or, I saw that you had a smiley chart with one of your students.
I've done contracts in the past. I guess it just depends on how serious the behavior problem is.
Okay.
And how frequent.
Well, that may be something we can use. Contracts. Of course, there's always parent conferences. We can talk about that. Okay. And I noticed, in your classroom that you have a certain flow, the way you do things. I noticed that you use the bees, that they get a certain color for, every positive move, and you use the potato head, and they get to earn, little parts of the potato head when they do compliments as a whole. And I noticed the way you've got your class organized and broken up. They seem to know, for the most part, what they're going to be doing on what days. But maybe one thing we could put down on here is changing the structure. If you notice that one thing seems to work particularly better with him, then that might be something. If it's easier for you, then maybe looking at changing. I know you don't want to change up an entire structure, but
it could be a challenge, especially because some kids are good with change, and some it causes them to be disruptive.
Right.
But, it's experimental. So it's worth a shot.
Okay, we'll put that down. Maybe changing the structure of the class. Okay. Well, I'm just going to read over some of the things that we have down on our list. And then, we can talk about them now and see, what's the possibility of them actually working. I have the rewards down, using positive incentives when he does a good behavior rather than a negative behavior. But what I'd like to say is, after we talked about the contracts, you could actually put the rewards into the contract.